From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News. I'm ALICIA Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, I'll look back at some of the top stories from our team of reporters covering governmental affairs, the courts, and law enforcement.
Gas leaks, pilot rescues, and helicopter emergencies are all a part of hazmat team training. Cronkite News reporter Sarah Lichterman went to Glendale Municipal Airport to see how firefighters prepare for hazardous situations.
Proficiency is the name of the game, and training is always important to us.
Valley firefighters have spent every Monday in hazardous training for the entire year. And this is the result.
The tarp has been placed on the Stinger, and we are in the process of cutting off the pump and the helicopter.
This drill involves a malfunction with a helicopter crop duster leaking gallons of toxic Zika virus fighting pesticide. And the firefighters' mission to rescue the trapped pilot, research the chemical, and contain the contamination.
Once we're able to identify what the product is, how much of the product there is, how we need to treat for it, and what we need to do, then we can put that into action. But if we don't have that research, we're going blind.
Over the Stinger so they can safely operate into the cockpit area to shut off the pump and then shut off the power to the helicopter.
Once the research is completed, entry firefighters dress in their full bodysuit splash gear and head on site to stop the source of the leak. Due to the toxicity of the chemical after the incident, as demonstrated in this drill, the firefighters are metered and sprayed in the decontamination area.
We have an entry team member that has run out of air. Right now, over the last couple of years, the concern is the Zika virus from the mosquitoes. So that's what prompted this drill for us. 14
fire department agencies throughout the valley partner up to train and successfully complete these drills in case of future hazardous situations. In Glendale, Sarah Lichterman, Cronkite News.
Now, most firefighters will not see emergencies like these throughout their career, but are trained to prepare and handle any situation that comes their way. A new program from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office hopes to increase communication between parents and student drivers. Cronkite News reporter Katie Bierry discusses why this helps teens on the road.
Sheriff Joe has sent out a total of 208 of these letters to parents of teenage drivers. Even if their son or daughter just receives a warning, their parents will know that they have been pulled over by law enforcement. Arpaio says the goal of the program is to give out more warnings for teen drivers instead of actual tickets. But Arpaio hopes to keep their parents aware of students' actions. Olivia Harris is a success story from the program. A sheriff's deputy pulled her over after she was driving 20 miles over the speed limit. Harris says she is grateful she only received a warning.
I got very lucky, as getting pulled over for my first time. I was thinking, thousand thoughts going through my mind, but I was very lucky to have the deputy that I had, and for him to make me understand why I was pulled over, and that he was only pulling me over to say, hey, for my own safety, this is why, you need to go the speed limit, and why those rules are enforced.
HALLEY McIntyre is the program's manager with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She agrees that having those early conversations with parents is the best step to preventing danger on the road.
The bond between a parent and a child is huge, and one of the things that can absolutely increase that bond is constant communication. So communicating expectations, laying out exactly, I expect you to not speed, I expect you to not drink underage, I expect you to be home at this time. Having those conversations and having those expectations laid out.
Arpaio did say that each letter does include a way of contacting him personally, but after 208 letters, he has yet to receive a phone call. Live in downtown Phoenix, Katie Bierry, Cronkite News.
A 5-year-old in Avondale was killed yesterday after he accidentally shot himself with a gun he found in a bedroom. More than 2 million children live in homes with guns that aren't stored in a proper, secure place, according to a study done by Everytown Research. So far in 2016, there have been at least 196 child shootings in the United States, 4 of those in Arizona. The study also cited that 61% of shootings involving a child occur in the victim's home, and 70% of people said that this could have been preventable if there had been responsible storage for the weapon. In the U.S., 27 states, along with D.C., have enacted some form of child access prevention law. However, Arizona remains without any kind of law that would impose criminal liability if a child were to get their hands on a gun. Back in July, Congressman Ruben Gallego introduced the HARD Act in an effort to keep military-style weapons out of the hands of children under the age of 16. However, no further action has been taken. Along with not having a child access prevention law, Arizona also doesn't currently have any form of safe storage or gun law requirement or an assault weapons ban.
There's a new test designed to help veterans stay away from opioids and the threat of addiction. Cronkite News reporter ALICIA Gonzalez takes us into the lab to show us how it works.
It's just a simple DNA test, and with just a simple swab of your cheek, doctors can tell you exactly how your body will react to different drugs. I found out just how important it is to remember medications aren't one size fits all, even when it comes down to that bottle of Tylenol you have sitting in your medicine cabinet.
I've lost a lot of friends that have committed suicide over the years, and some of them you don't suspect. Others you might suspect that they're kind of swirling that drain, and you reach out to them to try to help, and they won't take the help, and it hurts to lose them.
Craig Sawyer is a Marine and Navy SEAL veteran. He's been in the public eye since he says he was denied care by the Tucson VA. He said many veterans reach out to him via social media asking for advice and help.
Yeah, you wonder, you look back and hey, would this have saved them?
Advanced Genomic Solutions designed a test that looks at a patient's DNA to determine which medications will work best based on genetics. The managing partner is a veteran himself and has seen the problems with wrongly prescribed medication firsthand.
There's a widely known statistic now that looks at 22 veterans a day are actually committing suicide. And many of these people are on different types of medications that may be not working. You know, they're having an unmet need.
The two companies, Advanced Genomic Solutions and GENELEX, are hoping to bring that number down by offering their test to veterans at the Phoenix VA.
Our test is designed to look at all the medications that a person may be on and be able to figure out is what they're on working best for them.
After the DNA sample is collected, it goes through a couple machines like these, and the patient gets a printout with results with stop and go signs for each drug.
It's spelled out very easily for these individuals to know what they should be taking and what they can't be taking.
Somebody who is suffering any sort of anxiety and needing medication for that, my gosh, that medication needs to be effective. It needs to have an actual benefit.
The test is completely covered by insurance if veterans go through the VA. The test is also available to anyone who wants to know more about which medications will work best with their genetic makeup. ALICIA Gonzalez, Cronkite News.
The Phoenix VA hospital presented its 7th new director in just 3 years today. Rima Ann Nelson met with both Senator John McCain and Representative Ann Kirkpatrick before a news conference. Jesse Canales has the reaction to the VA's new leader.
Senator John McCain released a statement today expressing concerns about Nelson's resume. She was in charge of the St. Louis VA, which had similar mismanagement issues at the Phoenix VA. Representative Kirkpatrick had similar issues, calling the appointment deeply flawed. The Office of Inspector General's report released Tuesday shows that there continues to be persistent delays in care and patient consults at the Phoenix VA hospital, thousands as recently as March. Today, the Phoenix VA presented a new permanent director to address the issues presented in the report about the system-wide problems found in 2014. Nelson was previously in charge of the St. Louis VA.
St. Louis actually has many similarities to the Phoenix VA system in terms of complexity, size, and scope. And it's there that we actually saw decisive leadership on the part of Ms. Nelson.
During her time in charge of the St. Louis VA, more than 1,800 veterans were exposed to hepatitis B and C, as well as HIV from a breach of VA cleaning protocols.
Staff were not following VA protocol on cleaning dental equipment. She immediately took action where she stopped the services in the dental clinic.
Nelson said she will do the same in Phoenix if she has to.
I cannot guarantee you quality and safety. When you walk into your VA, I'm going to shut things down. I'm a nurse, that's my background. And I want our employees to feel that they work within a culture of safety.
Shulkin said the report by the Office of Inspector General's information was outdated because they have hired over 700 new employees, but they still need more schedulers.
We are short medical schedulers. We have way too many vacancies, and there still are too many vacancies. It's one of the things that was pointed out in the Office of Inspector General report.
Some veterans say they still haven't seen many changes with scheduling since 2 years ago.
Nothing's really changed. The wait times are still taking forever. The budget's increasing. Care hasn't improved. Wait times haven't improved.
Dobson says the choice card system will make it easier for veterans to schedule appointments at other patient care facilities. Maureen McCarthy was also presented as the new Chief of Staff for the Phoenix VA healthcare system. Nelson and McCarthy toured the hospital after the press conference. In the broadcast center, Jessica Canales, Cronkite News.
As Washington lawmakers wrestle over funding for opioid and prescription drug abuse, one program that helps veterans with substance abuse problems is already getting high marks from advocates. Reporter Dylan Eddy is live in our Washington bureau with the details.
2.5 million Americans have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and many more than once. But for some, returning home is the biggest part of their battle.
Within 72 hours, I was back in Philadelphia, and 4 days later, I was arrested for aggravated assault.
Timothy Wynn, a combat Marine who served honorably during the invasion of Iraq, found himself spiraling out of control.
You know, I used drugs and alcohol to cope with, what I now know as PTSD.
Wynn was arrested 7 times, but instead of being sent to prison, he entered into the Veterans Treatment Court system, which he says saved his life.
All of a sudden, you're kind of focused on a mission again. That's what we're used to. And, that mission, of course, is recovery.
What exactly is a Veterans Treatment Court? A video provided by Justice for Vets explains.
These veterans-only courtrooms offer treatment, accountability, and structure, while connecting them to benefits they have earned. If there is no Veterans Treatment Court available, they may end up in jail, separated from family, without treatment, and stuck in a cycle from which they may never recover.
These treatment courts grow out of similar diversion courts for mental illness and drug addiction. Judge Robert Russell explained an encounter that he had with a Vietnam vet in these similar courts, which led him to create the first veteran treatment court in Buffalo back in 2008.
He was standing erect. His feet was, his stance was slightly parted. His hands was behind his back. And he looked me direct in the eyes and said, "Judge, I'm going to try harder."
Today, there are 436 treatment courts nationwide. 9 of those are located in Arizona, and more are likely to come. Kingman Municipal Court Judge Jeffrey Singer said this in regards to the establishment of treatment courts.
I just think they're wonderful because it gives veterans who serve their country a second chance. They're in a lot better place in life when they graduate the program than when they first entered into the program.
The Kingman Veterans Treatment Court is the latest in Arizona, opening its doors last December. And it also had its first graduate from the program just last week. Reporting live from Washington, I'm Dylan Eddy, Cronkite News.
As Hillary Clinton prepares for her town hall meeting tonight, Ann Holton, the wife of vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine, held a roundtable discussion where military veterans expressed their concerns over several issues affecting them. Jessica Canales tells us why several veterans believe Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine are the best candidates to tackle said issues.
And we are so proud of how great our military is.
Several veterans came out in support of Virginia's former Secretary of Education for the Commonwealth and Holton's roundtable discussion. Holton says she understands veterans' concerns, such as transitioning back to civilian life because her son currently serves in the military.
And I know it's going to be hard for him, and it's a little bit difficult for us as a family, of me as a wife with 2 kids. How are we going to manage that?
My son is in the Marine Corps. Somebody's a Marine here. Tomas, hoorah!
Several veterans who spoke in favor of Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine said their experience gives them the best understanding of veterans' issues.
I think Hillary's got the veterans' issues down cold, okay? She's been around a very long time. She's seen them all. She's been with their families. She knows what they need.
Tim Seifert, Republican Party Communications Director, says his party, especially Senator John McCain, is working for veterans.
He is maximizing his influence in Congress to help veterans.
But one veteran disagreed, saying he is dismayed with some Republicans he feels don't vote for vets.
McCain voted against the GI Bill a few years ago. There was a recent veterans bill that came up to the Senate. Only 2 Republican senators voted for it.
Cipher says the contrary is true.
It's right in our platform to honor the sacred commitment, the sacrifice that veterans have made.
Holton says she will take what she learned back to Hillary and Tim. From Phoenix, this is CANALES, Cronkite News.
Your favorite PBS shows, ready to watch when you are. Anytime, any place. Find more ways to explore than ever before.
Cyber attacks, natural disasters, all kinds of hazards can strike our state. The Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs held an event to ensure we're prepared for a crisis. Cronkite News reporter Joey Carrera was at the event as they mapped out plans to stay safe.
The event was filled with all kinds of community members, from church leaders to first responders, and they all had the same goal of spreading a message that will lead to action, so that if we or our communities are faced with a crisis, we can recover. The first part of preparing for a disaster starts with the conversation at home. Wendy Smith-Reeve, Deputy Director of the Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, says we have to ask ourselves basic questions.
What would you need? Do you have enough non-perishable food? Do you have enough water?
She recommends making and storing emergency kits. Being prepared at home helps the government in their disaster planning.
As each of the individual citizens is preparing, the government is making similar plans to assist them in the event that some of those needs fall short.
But dangerous situations can happen anywhere, at any time. Recent bomb threats at schools have the Arizona Department of Education taking steps to ensure the safety of students.
The number one thing is that schools have a plan in place, and we as a department are committed to assisting in the development of those plans.
All agencies I spoke with said the time to create a plan is now, before disaster strikes. They say to sit with your family and practice that plan. In downtown Phoenix, Joey Carrera, Cronkite News.
So how do Arizonans feel about law enforcement? We asked that question in a poll conducted with the Arizona Republic, the Morrison Institute, and Cronkite News. Reporter ALICIA Gonzalez shares the poll results.
We had mixed poll results from the 2 questions we sent out back in late August. I attended One Phoenix's first event in celebration of National Nonviolence Day over in Hermosa Park. Here's how their responses lined up with the poll numbers.
Let me clarify something, okay? We don't hate the police department. We don't hate the police department, okay? I'll say it again. We do not hate the police department.
Jarvis Johnson has been an active community member for the past 10 years. He says he has a great relationship with the police, but knows others have different experiences.
I think a lot of the times, you know, in situations, it's because of the color of our skin. It's like they think we're going to do something.
We try and look at things through our little world and our little bubble to try and make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason.
And many Arizonans believe police are doing that. A recent poll by the Arizona Republic, the Morrison Institute, and Cronkite News showed that nearly 84% of people thought Arizona law enforcement would treat them fairly. The poll talked to more than 780 people and had a margin of error of 3.6 percentage points. The responses were mixed for how people thought Arizona law enforcement would treat others depending on ethnicity. 46% believed officers would have a different set of rules depending on ethnicity. Nakia Walker said she hasn't personally experienced any mistreatment, but she knows someone who has.
Person was arrested and thrown in jail. They were beat up. They wore dentures. Their dentures were taken from them and thrown in the trash. We didn't find out this person was in jail for about 48 hours. They weren't allowed a phone call.
Phoenix Police Department Community Action Sergeant Keith Doherty said he's always trying to improve that relationship with the community.
And our biggest thing is to talk to folks. They're not enough, either folks that like us or don't like us, or officers are comfortable just talking to each other. So that's the biggest thing. I will walk up to anybody and have a sit-down conversation with them.
Sergeant Doherty said coming out to nonviolence protests like Saturday was a nice change from responding to 911 calls all day. You can see the entire poll by going to the full story on cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Just click the poll results link off to the side. In Phoenix, ALICIA Gonzalez, Cronkite News.
In political campaigns, money can amplify your message with commercials, robocalls, and fundraisers.
Behind major political players are some big spenders and their checkbooks. Those big spenders can form political action committees, and they don't have to report their spending the same way candidates do. I spoke with an organization to learn how they're using social media to shed light on dark money in 140 characters or less.
The reason we made this bot was in 2014, we saw an explosion of dark money spending in Arizona.
Evan Weiledge of the Arizona Center for Investigative Reporting says the spending comes from nonprofit groups like Independent Expenditure and Political Action Committees. Both groups have a legal way to keep their flow of funds in the dark, which is where the term dark money comes from.
One small section of the IE committees is permitted to spend money without disclosing where that money came from.
So what that means is that there is some independent group that's out there that's spending money because they think, you know, candidate X ought to be elected or that candidate Y ought to be defeated.
Tom Collins, Arizona Citizens Clean Election Commission director, says dark money diminishes voting rights, but it's not illegal. He says that since statehood, issues revolving around elections, voters, and public information were of the utmost importance.
They're all baked into the Arizona State Constitution and have all been concerns for, more than 100 years.
Collins says that since 2010, the legislature has passed bills that make public information about donations less transparent, like Senate Bill 1516. But there's always a paper trail, and that's where the dark money bot comes in.
He's actually picking up on reports that are filed at the Secretary of State's office by corporations and LLCs and unions.
And we just take that and format it into a tweet, including doing a lookup on the name to find a Twitter handle.
The dark money bot tweeted that $500,000 alone was spent in the primary election. Collins says we can expect to see another surge of spending ahead of the presidential election.
This really is sort of prime time coming up in the next few weeks for folks who are going to spend money to influence races.
To take a closer look at campaign donations, follow the dark money bot on Twitter at @AZDarkMoney.
In the final week of campaigning, both parties continue to buy more TV ads. While some may find the increasing number of ads annoying, two artists see these ads as a political art project. Joey CARRERA introduces us to the artists.
In 1984, artists Antonio Montadas and Marshall Reese sifted through archives of retro political ads. It was the start of their ever-evolving project that includes footage from more than 60 years ago. A catchy melody and a simple message. That's how political ads used to be. Each election cycle, as the times and issues change, artists Anthony Montadas and Marshall Reese capture the political promises from the airwaves and add them to their art project.
So what a person sees over time is the evolution of the image, how the image changes, and also the evolution of the ideas.
ASU Art Museum Director Gordon Knox says the unbiased presentation of the political art project puts voters in the right frame of mind.
The correct political choice in this for this state really will come from the policies and not from the propaganda.
Compared to those of yesteryear, the stark contrast of current political ads may just be in the presentation.
I mean, in a certain way, there's a stasis of ideas. I mean, things don't change that much in political life.
Here, the media is a protagonist.
But there are times when politicians were ahead of the curve.
The first ad of Jackie Kennedy in Spanish. To a Spanish community.
Other times, the message is repeated.
The 1964 LBJ ad, which is known as the Daisy ad, which is plays on the fears of nuclear annihilation.
The ad has been replicated notably by Bob Dole and more recently Hillary Clinton. Their 90-minute artistic vision is presented with simplicity, but compiled in a much deeper way.
They dive into all of that information with a ability to maneuver through intuition and innuendo, as opposed to having to go from fact and persuasion.
The compilation of campaign spots is making its way around the U.S. and even into Canada. Check cronkitenews.azpbs for some vintage snapshots. Joey CARRERA, Cronkite News.
It may not feel like it here in the valley where we're still seeing highs in the upper 80s, but temperatures are cooling down around the state, and ADOT wants to make sure that everyone is prepared for the first snowfall. Sunny skies, short sleeves, beautiful warm Arizona weather. But even with the chance we'll hit a record high today, ADOT is talking about snow.
Our training goes on all year long, and we have maintenance work on the snow plows all year long as well, but we are ready. Come this time of the year, we have nearly 200 plows statewide, and then we have 400 employees who are actually trained to be snowplow operators.
And if you should see these plows on the street, get out of the way.
Each one of these snowplows weighs more than 30 tons. They are very heavy vehicles. You do not want to mess around with a snowplow. You want to be able to let the snowplow operator do his or her job, clear the highway ahead of you. We always recommend staying at least 4 vehicle lanes behind a snowplow.
ADOT wants people to do one thing as we wish for even just fall-like temperatures.
The biggest mistake is just not being prepared.
If you are heading out to northern Arizona, check the forecast and stock your car.
What we focus on is having the things like the extra blankets, the extra change of clothing, the extra gloves, the flashlights, the extra batteries, also the food items, some snack items, maybe some, and you should have some bottled water, things that are going to make you comfortable if you have to stop along the highway during winter driving conditions.
Snow can happen anytime, anywhere.
You have the White Mountains. You have Mount Lemmon in the Tucson area. It can snow down in Nogales and in eastern Arizona, southeastern Arizona.
And with snow comes ice, and driving on it can be difficult.
You want to slowly pump the brakes and let them do the job. That's really the best way to stay out of a skid. If you find yourself skidding, usually the recommendation is going to be make sure you're turning the steering wheel in the direction of the skid. That usually is a way to allow you to straighten things out. And again, no panic braking.
The best advice, just to be prepared and take your time. To keep up to date on weather conditions and snowplow tracking, you can follow ADOT on Twitter or check out their website.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.